He's one of the newest members of the Ohio Senate, but he's not new to the State House. A conversation with Kenny Yuko, next on Ohio in Focus. Welcome to Ohio in Focus, the program that brings state government to you. I'm your host, Mike Rao. The start of the 131st General Assembly brings some new members to the Ohio Senate. One of those members joins us today. Kenny Yuko now represents the 25th Senate District, which includes part of Cleveland and portions of Cuyahoga and Lake counties. Senator, thanks for joining us.
Mike, thanks for having me.
This is more like welcome back, isn't it?
Welcome back, Cotter, in a new version, and hopefully it'll be just as much fun.
So you spent 8 years in the Ohio House.
We spent 8 years in the Ohio House representing the old House District 7, which was Euclid, South Euclid, Richmond Heights, and Collinwood. We no longer represent Collinwood, but the other three cities remain as part of the Senate District, and looking forward to getting re-engaged with the people again.
So let's talk a little bit about your background.
Sure.
You grew up in Euclid.
Grew up in Euclid.
So how does a kid from Euclid end up being a state legislator?
It's a long story with a lot of twists and turns, but the reality of it is, for the most part of my adult life, I served as a union organizer. And when I first decided that things were going not as well in Columbus as I had hoped they would be, especially for working families, I decided that I would throw my hat into the ring to become a state representative. And my campaign speech is really simple. It said that if you wanted to be a doctor, you had to go to medical school. If you wanted to be a lawyer, you had to go to law school. And if you wanted to be a state rep, I thought you should be a union organizer first, and I'll tell you why. As a state rep, we did the same things we did as a union organizer. Things like fight for better wages, fight for better health care, make sure that when people retire, they can retire in dignity, make sure there's no discrimination, and make sure that there is job safety, all as priority items. That's what we did as a union leader, and that's what we're doing as a legislator as well.
Question I like to ask legislators is, before you came to the General Assembly, you probably had an idea or a perception of what it would be like to be here. Once you got here, was there any surprises?
Every day was a surprise, and I had a lot of experience down here in Columbus with the legislature, and I thought I had such a good handle on the situation. I thought I probably was as prepared as anybody could possibly be, and how wrong I was from day one. And it was a learning experience. It was a learning curve. It was a lot of fun. It was very exciting. And I think at the end of the 8 years, we can look back and reflect. It was very successful, and that's probably the best part. So
now you've come to the Senate, joined the Senate Democratic Caucus. You're going to be the ranking member on the Government Oversight Committee. Talk about that role a little bit.
Well, I've had some experience as ranking member. I served 6 years as ranking member on Commerce and Labor, and I actually served 2 years as chairman when the Democrats had that two-brief-year opportunity to provide us with the chairmanship. And it's a lot of fun because it's more important than what legislation gets passed. It's sometimes the input that you have with legislation that doesn't get passed, or legislation that you kind of helped shift away from one message to another, and one that was represented a compromise, perhaps, between both sides of the aisle, and something that doesn't always get out to the media, something that everybody doesn't understand, but the end result is legislators work more with each other than people think, and that's the good news.
So in the 131st General Assembly, you've already introduced one piece of legislation. I want to talk about that a little bit, and that's the Senate Bill 25, which is the Ohio Workers' Rights Act. Let's go through some of the different parts of it. First of all, the minimum wage.
The minimum wage is the big part of that bill, and that's the one that everybody's talking about, and it's really very simple. It's all quality of life issues, and it's something I've addressed all my life as a union organizer and as a legislator. And this is no difference, Mike. It's going to give people the ability to provide more for their family. It makes it very difficult to raise a family on minimum wage, and more people are doing it. We have so many single moms out there that, again, trying to provide for their families on a minimum wage. We just happened to have a phone call last week from a mom talking about a different subject, talking about the park testing for the schools, and she was talking about the fact that she was so adamant about the education her daughters got, because she wanted them to have the opportunity not to have to work a minimum wage job or even sometimes multiple minimum wage jobs just to try to provide for their families. And I think that's the message it sends. It also gives the families an opportunity to contribute to the community as well. You know, it's very hard to have extra money to spend when you're making so little.
So what you propose is raising it from the current $8.05 an hour to $10.10.
$10.10.
How does Ohio compare to other states? I mean, are other states moving in the same direction?
Other states are moving in the same direction. You know what? There's some people who are critical, and they're saying, listen, you know what? Ohio doesn't have to be in the forefront of this. And there's several states that are ahead of us, but we're catching up real rapidly, and this piece of legislation will do just that. And my question is, why does Ohio always have to be 47, 48, 49, or 50? It doesn't have to be that way. You know, we can be front leaders and make things happen. We followed the course of a lot of other states that have moved forward already. Washington, D.C., they'll be at $10.50 in July of 2015. Massachusetts, they'll be increasing to $10 at the beginning of 2016, same as we're proposing, but then they also jump up automatically to $11 in 2017. California, they're scheduled to be at $10 on January of 2016. Vermont will be at $10 2017, and Hawaii is going to match us at $10.10, but not until 2018. But it shows us that, you know what, we're in the right ballpark, and we're in the right ballpark for the wrong reasons. You know, people misunderstand that it's not your high school kid looking for a part-time job making minimum wage anymore, Mike. It's your single moms. It's a lot of adults that are over 20 years old, a lot of them working part-time jobs, but a whole lot working full-time. Sometimes it's a mom and dad working in concert with one another, sometimes both working minimum wage jobs, sometimes both of them working 2 minimum wage jobs just to try to provide for their families. This will give them the opportunity to do better for everybody.
Now, whenever we talk about the minimum wage, statewide or nationally, there are people who will say that this will be a burden on businesses if you raise the minimum wage. How do you respond to that?
I respond very simply. It won't be a burden at all. In fact, some of the small businesses that I've heard from, I would say half the small businesses are very much for it, and the other half are very much opposed to it. But those who are opposed to it, I think they're opposed for the wrong reasons. They're thinking to themselves that what's going to happen is this: they're going to be forced to pay additional wages to their employees, and something they don't really want to do. What they don't recognize is the fact that in our communities, especially in our 25th Senate District, we've got so many of our constituents who are struggling to get by every single day. And now we're to give them an opportunity to earn, it's just $2, but that $2 over 40 hours, week after week after week, it's going to give them valuable dollars that they can spend right in our own communities. And when they stop at those local businesses and they start buying other product and everything, and by the way, this works right in with Governor Kasich's plan. You know, he's given back an income tax cut, making up for the lost money with the proposed increase in sales tax. Well, if no one's buying anything, that plan's not going to work. This plan's going to supplement the people out there spending money. So I think our governor will probably want to get on the co-signer list with me on this one.
I do believe the director of his budget office even acknowledged in some testimony recently that the wages in Ohio aren't growing as much as they should.
Yeah.
They're pretty much stagnant.
They've been stagnant. We need to catch up. If we had taken back in the late 60s with minimum wage, kept up with the rate of inflation, we'd be at over $17 right now in productivity. And we're way behind. And the families are hurting.
Let's talk about another aspect of your bill, and that's the one that would deal with the threshold for overtime for salaried workers. You know,
and again, here's another case where salary was not meant to be abused when it was first initiated. It was meant to be a job security position, but over the years, certain businesses have found ways to abuse the system, so to speak, take advantage of workers, take advantage of the workers' families, put them in a very precarious position where they're stuck, you know, and they have no place to go, no one to speak up for them, and this will give them an opportunity to adjust it. So the employer is going to come back and argue that, you know what, why are you forcing us to pay overtime? You know, if we need somebody to work that many hours, why do we have to pay them overtime now? And the answer is very simple. If you have that much work to do, hire additional bodies, and you don't have to pay overtime. And maybe that's what the state needs. Maybe we can lower the amount of unemployment in the state by having people reach out to people that are working way too many hours at a locked-in rate with their salaried position, and hire some additional people and give more people opportunities for work.
So what has been the reaction to this bill? You mentioned it a little bit, some people, the business owners, but I mean, what's been the reaction?
The reaction from the people who are actually earning minimum wage, they're ecstatic. They feel like they finally have somebody who's going to speak out for them, give them a chance, give them, I mean, I spent 8 years in the State House talking about hope. It seemed like every piece of legislation we introduced, the key word was hope. Mm-hmm. And now, once again, we're giving a lot of people hope that we can make their lives a little bit better. And in the business end, I think those who are opposed to it, once we explain to them what's going on and how it's going to possibly help and assist their business, they seem to be willing to listen a little bit more. Those businesses that do understand, they're already on board. And I think they understand the fact that this is an opportunity for them to increase their business and increase it substantially.
As we wrap up here, I want to focus in on a word that you just used, hope. So looking at this bill and the General Assembly in general for this session, how hopeful are you about that?
I'm very hopeful. You know what? I've worked with all these legislators. There's so much criticism going on that the Democrats can't work with the Republicans can't work with the Democrats. And I find that to be absolutely not true. You know, I've worked with these folks for 8 years now, campaigned with them. I know them. They're good people on both sides of the aisle. And my word isn't hope for these. It's trust that we can work together. We will do the right thing. And who will benefit for it are all the people from the state of Ohio, and they deserve it.
Okay, great conversation. Thanks for joining us, Senator.
Thanks for having us, Mike.
Well, for the latest news on the Ohio Senate, you can follow Senator Yuko and the Ohio Senate Democratic Caucus on Facebook, Twitter, and ohiosenate.gov. Thanks for watching Ohio in Focus.